Welcome to Why Choose Wednesdays, where I talk about a Why Choose series and why you should read it. Let's go. So today I'm going to be talking about The Make Games in honor of the very last book of this 19-book series coming out. I finally finished the series and I loved it. Loved it so much. So here is a breakdown on how to read The Make Games. Let's do this. Alright, so the premise of this series is that there are 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and their purpose is to create the apocalypse. But they decide to make a game out of it, seeing as though they're just, demented. So each of the horsemen choose their players, and they tie them together as fated mates. And the main characters are trying to prevent the apocalypse from happening. Like I said before, there are a total of 19 books, and although that may seem intimidating, it isn't. Like, once you get into these books, you'll have a hard time taking a break or even remembering that there's other books that you're currently reading. They're also a really good palate cleanser. Like, I became obsessed with the entire world, but like I said, it was super easy to read. I listened to all of the books on Audible, and it's a full cast. Anthony Palmini, Teddy Hamilton, amazing cast, so definitely worth checking out. Now, to get into how to read the Make Games, this entire series is interconnected and has several sets of series that takes place in the world just with different characters. I am going to make a post about this, that way you guys can just save that if you want to and you don't have to come back to watch the video. So first off, you're going to start with War. She's going to be around here somewhere. This series centers around a young wolf shifter named Sunday Fallon who hasn't been able to transform or connect with her wolf. So she gets sent off to a college or university for the supernatural and paranormal to help access her wolf. While she is there, she is reunited with her former mate, whose bond that she had actually rejected. She then becomes friends with a witch and a demigod of sorts, who is extremely handsome and looks like Thor. And she also is stalked by a British vampire prince and condemned by a fallen vampire priest. Probably see where that goes. So throughout this series, Sunday and her team face many twists and turns, as well as relive traumatic experiences, and it's just such a great series. But this series is not for the faint of heart, okay? It is very emotional. Check your trigger warnings, because it is dark, it is spicy, it is just, it's everything. It's perfect though. I'm trying not to give too much away because I really think that it is worth your time to read the series. But if you want me to go further in depth about the series with spoilers, let me know. But so far I'm going to keep these free as spoilers. So the order that you'll read this series will be obsession, rejection, possession, and then temptation. There is a novella, but you're going to want to not read that one until after the next series, just because it might give away some spoilers. So that's what I did. So next up in the Make Games world is Pestilence. So Pestilence follows Rosalind Blackthorne, and she is actually the sister of the vampire prince from the previous series, War. She runs away from home to leave an arranged marriage with a brutal vampire known as the Duke of Tears. She runs off to Alaska so that she can meet up with this hacker that's completely off the grid, okay? And she needs his help to, kind of get her off the grid, to change her identity. So she gets his help and it is successful, but unfortunately where she's from, a vampire family, she can be tracked with her scent. So she ends up making a deal with a demon so that he can help her cover up her identity and kind of cover up her scent. So after all of this happens, she ends up staying in this small town because she feels like it'll just be better for her there, where she meets 2 wolf shifters that own a bar, and she kind of just ends up working with them. They're twin brothers, they're fun. They build a connection and they kind of make their own little family. This story was definitely full of twists and turns and surprises that I was not ready for. It is very, very dark. There are a lot of dark, possessive, and very morally gray men. You need to check your trigger warnings for this one because it is a lot of like kind of dubcon, so make sure you read your trigger warnings before you get involved with the series. Now, while there are really dark elements to this one, there is also some light comedy, which I love. You know, it's a perfect blend between the both of them, and you'll honestly, the characters will just end up tugging on your heartstrings. And the characters from the previous series show up on this one, or show up in this one as well. You're going to want to start off with the prequel, which is Promised to the Night. This one's just kind of like a smaller book. And then you're going to move on to A Deal with the Demon, Claimed by Shifters, Captive of the Night, and then Lost to the Moon. And then if you want to read the novella from the Make Games War, which is Devotion, I would recommend reading it then. Okay, next up is the Make Games Death. Now, this series was much different than the first two I read. It takes place in a mental institution or an asylum for the supernatural / paranormal. It follows our FMC, Dahlia. She is actually a human romance author with a very traumatic past. Just like hearing about her past was honestly just bizarre to me, but then, you know, like as the series kept going, you could understand what was going on and like, everything coming together was just so good in the series. She was admitted into this institution after a public incident involving her seeing the ghost of her father and the almost death of her coworkers. She was actually completely unaware of this paranormal supernatural universe because in this series the supernatural and the paranormal, they live separately from the humans, so only a few humans actually know that this world exists. She now has to come to terms with the fact that vampires and shifters and ghosts are all real. During her rehabilitation there, she is forced to attend these group therapy sessions. And that is where she meets a whole bunch of creatures at the one time, including a dragon shifter that tattoos, a demigod, which happens to be the brother of the other demigod in the first series, War, a extremely handsome southern powerful man with no memory of who he is or why he ended up in the institution, and, I kid you not, an absolutely deranged, flirtatious piece of work pirate named Hook. Like, this series kind of has like everything, you know, like retellings, characters, magic, supernatural, paranormal. But yeah, I did not find it hard to actually understand the world building. I do feel like Meg Anne and K Loraine did really good. So yeah, this series was very unique. It took me a little bit longer to get into compared to the first two series, but I think that's because in the first two series, the FMCs took a while to find all of their mates. Whereas with this series, the men kind of just showed up all at once. All the characters were introduced immediately, but it got really, really good. And I understand why they did it that way. So I like how there was like a change in pace for the series. I liked it. So for this series, for Death, you're going to want to start off with Haunting Beauty, Hunted Beast, Hateful Prince, and Heartless Villain. Now last but not least, the Make Games Apocalypse. So if I say too much about this series, it'll give away a lot, so I'm going to keep it to the bare minimum. But once again, there is an FMC with a bunch of fated mates trying to prevent the apocalypse. So yeah, our FMC, her name is Mary, and she is actually a succubus. For those of you who don't know, a succubus is a demon that feeds off of the pleasure and lust of others. She is actually introduced in the previous series, Death, and you get to know a little bit about her, which was great to me. I didn't know that this next series was going to be about her, so I got very excited. But that is all I'm going to tell you about this series, because like I said, I do not want to give away too much. If you want me to give out spoilers, let me know and I will, but for this video, I don't want to do that. So for the Apocalypse series, you're going to want to read in this order. We're going to do Sin, Chaos, Malice, Grim, and then Lucifer. And Lucifer just came out literally like 4 days ago. So good. But yeah, I absolutely loved reading the Make games, listening to the audio. I was immersed into their world, and it was just, like I said, not hard to follow. I feel like it is extremely underrated, and I really hope you guys listen to it or read it, and let me know if you do. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for a post that'll just break it down a little bit easier for ya. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.